All right, here we are at yet another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
And good morning to you, Bill, and hello to all our guests.
There we go. Today's podcast number is 460. The title of today's podcast is Creative Real Estate's Frankenstein.
Ooh. Oh, boy.
Here is the description. Ever feel like you're playing Monopoly while everyone else somehow got the rulebook to an entirely different game? In this landmark episode, we will unveil what we are now calling the Frankenstein Method of deal structuring. Let me be direct. If you're still using pre-2020 deal structures, you're leaving enormous profits on the table if, of course, you are actually making deals. Period. See, most real estate dealologists are still trying to string together creative deals using pre-pandemic deal structures and scripts. And that's like trying to win a Formula One race with a horse and a buggy. We all know the market has fundamentally changed, but 97% of all investors haven't updated their playbook. They are still in the 2019 market trying to make deals in 2025. In the next 60 minutes, you will listen to Bill, me, meticulously dissect his proprietary Frankenstein method of getting and making gargantuan creative deals. But realize this concept is far more powerful than its pieces and parts. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's get started. Are you ready to dig in?
Mm-hmm.
So first thing we're going to do is a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to ask you to subscribe to us or like us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. When we record this, we record it on a Thursday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and we live stream it to Facebook and YouTube to two different channels, to Flipping Houses for Rookies and Creative REI Reply, which is the software we own. So you can go there if you would like to participate in the show while we're recording and you have a question, you can type in wherever the platform allows you to type, and we will get your question and answer it as long as it's pertaining to the show. Also realize that I have come out with a new newsletter. It releases every Saturday morning. You can find it at Creative Real Estate Dealology Newsletter.com/subscribe. If you go to YouTube and you look at one of our videos, the link is there. And I have just recently published a new book, and Peter doesn't even know this, but I have recently published a new book, that part you know, called Leads, Deals, Cash, Creative Real Estate Operators Manual. And sometime this week, I will be publishing the workbook for that book. I have it done. And I am almost done with the software where you can actually go answer questions and write some essays and get certified as a creative real estate investor. It's the first time it's been brought to the industry. I am the first one to actually create a standard operating procedure to actually do creative real estate and actually certify you. So I don't know about you, Peter, but I would like for you to be one of the very first to get certified. Right?
Imagine. Well, that's how it goes, doesn't it? That's how we roll here.
It's a new thing today to us, but someday down the road, there's going to be hundreds, maybe thousands of certifications, and you're going to say, oh, I was one of the first to get certified.
Yeah, and people don't think about things like that, just to actually codify it, get it there, and actually work on learning how to understand it and do it. Not just talk about it and go home and good luck. I hope you caught some of it, No.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm going to show you the platform afterwards. I've covered everything, even special words. I put glossaries in there, everything. It's actually, I've been working on it for a long time, and I keep changing it. I'll work on it for a month or two, and then I'll ditch it, and I don't like it, and I'll start over. But this time, I've nailed it. I've hired someone to actually make the book for me. The layout,
Hmm.
and I'm waiting for that. I should have that by next week, and I'm really excited about it. Anyways, that's not why we're here. If you go to Amazon and just type in William Hawthorne, that is my name. There's no E at the end of Hawthorne, Hawthorn. I have 7 or 8 books that I published, and the new book, Leads, Deals, Cash, Creative Real Estate, Operator's Manual, is there. Okay? So
Absolutely.
pretty cool book. You just read it.
Hmm.
It's like 220 pages, and I've covered a lot. All right, on to the podcast.
Here we
Here we
go.
go.
There we go.
Frankenstein.
Hmm.
Ha! Frankenstein is an American Gothic pre-code science fiction horror film directed by James Whale, and it was released in 1931.
But when you say pre-code, that's like the levels of movies, like parental guidance and mature. That's that what that is?
Yeah, that was PG and rated R and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because they didn't have that. So before that was the Wild West. They did whatever, huh?
Right.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, the book was actually written in 1880.
That
Right?
crazy.
And it was written by Mary Shelley. I'm sorry, 1818, not 1880, 1818,
18.
as the novel Frankenstein. Right? And
Wow.
really what the book was about, obviously I didn't read it, but from when I did research online, what the book was really about was the the experimentation of science and how it could be dangerous. Right? Because Frankenstein, Frankenstein tells the story of a gifted scientist who succeeds in giving life to a being of his own creation. Victor, who is the scientist in the movie, secretly works long into the night, notating every detail in his journal. This is why I call this a Frankenstein model. You will soon realize that all these things are going to come together, right? So Victor secretly works long into the night, noting every single detail in his journal. Driven by ambition, Victor assembles a creature from body parts and brings it to life. Remember the big lightning bolt?
Right? Yep.
The point in today's episode is, like the movie, can you take a dead parts of deals and build offers that are so thrilling the seller struggles to say no to you? However, in the movie, Victor assembles a creature from body parts and brings it to life, only to be horrified by its monstrous appearance. Because in Frankenstein goes out of control, right?
Yeah.
Right. The only thing
he loses it.
He didn't have a brain, right?
He had one, but I think they got it from the wrong guy. They took it from some criminal, crazy person. He just got the wrong one.
So
work out the hot.
I'm not gonna. I probably should make a whole show about this. It probably would be a hit, bloops and blunders. But there are a lot of monsters that we've created in the last couple of years that didn't work, right?
I suppose.
Scripts and stuff like that, right? But we're not scientists with unproven theories at this point. Today, we're talking about our experience. We have tested and proven methods that normally or pre-2020 had very important nuances that were pretty strict. And nowadays, we've kind of crumbled a lot of those rules up and thrown them away, right? We have taken those pieces and parts and by complete survival means, created some new and amazing tools that will make the future you very proud and extremely happy with your fortune if you follow them.
Mm-hmm.
So today, I would like to summarize these Frankenstein methods and its pieces of deal structuring that worked in different eras. I know my accent's a little bit weird there. Can you say the word, please?
You had it, eras,
Yeah. Okay.
not errors, like times, different
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
eras.
I want to make sure my accent doesn't, because I know I have an accent. I never thought I did until I started doing text to speech.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, if you,
My dad's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he didn't finish high school, so his English, he had a hell of an accent. And I always thought I never did, but now when I go to text to speech, it's like, yeah, that was a dad word.
oh, well, I don't notice. Maybe I have the same one, but my dad's not
Yeah.
from Pittsburgh. It's like Sicily. So, anyways.
Yeah. All right. So I'd like to summarize these Frankenstein methods and its pieces of deal structuring that worked in different eras. And we stitch them together to create some of today's methods so that we can thrive in a current economy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Our historical lesson for today starts back in April and May of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You remember?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hard to forget.
We were using text magic back then. Remember text magic? It's still
Sure.
around, actually.
Sure.
So text magic was I had a coaching client, Tim, who is now a private lender for us. He's no longer a coaching client.
Mm-hmm.
He came into the coaching group. He was a pretty smart guy from California or Las Vegas or something, and said, my goal is in a year from now, I want to take a year off and I want to go sailing.
That's right.
Remember, he wanted to sail from, I think, Maine to Florida or something. I don't remember what it was, but
Yeah, I
he
think
had he had a destination. So we worked on his creative real estate deals to not only buy him a boat, but to fund him for his trip, which ended up being, I think, 15 or 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the best thing that ever happened to him, because one of the things it did do is it shed him of all of his materialistic things like houses and cars and things that, I mean, he was doing pretty good already, but it was an interesting drill to go through with him. But anyways, he was the one that found text magic and introduced it to me, which happens a lot with me, right? I have students that find things and bring them to me, and then we share it with other people. It's not all just me doing stuff. It's just because, I have a lot of communication with others.
Sure.
Which is another thing that's changed considerably, because I used to be a phone guy. I remember at one point I remember back some years ago, my phone bill was 6,000 minutes a month. Now I just went through my phone the other day, and I miss phone calls. I hardly ever, unless it's my kids or my wife or somebody that I know, or if I even have my phone with me, because a lot of times I'll put it in the other room, right?
Mm-hmm.
I barely ever answer the phone anymore. Right. So that's one of the changes. So everything that I do when I say I have a lot of communication is through texting or WhatsApp.
Mm-hmm.
I run practically my whole business mostly on WhatsApp. I mean, I've got a couple businesses, I'm running a boiler room right now, meaning a sales team, and it's all through WhatsApp. Right. I have assistants in other countries, and it's all through WhatsApp. So I communicate a lot, but it's on WhatsApp, right?
Well, 2 messages came through just before the podcast on 2 different WhatsApps that I'm
Right.
on. Some, yes, 2 of them.
So what we were doing was we were using text magic,
Mm-hmm.
and we were texting for sale by owners, right? We could get about before March of 2020, I was getting around 150 leads a week, right? I think we were using, you may need to remember this. I think we were using My Plus Leads or something like that. We were using a service to get the leads in a spreadsheet.
Right. And it was mostly for sale by owners, right?
It was all for sale by owners. It was nothing else.
It's okay. So at that point, we could dig up 150 for sale
It
by
was
owners in our
it was
area.
about a week. It was about a week, about
Yeah.
150 a week. So we
Yeah.
had plenty of text to do, right?
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit in March, and by I don't know, by around April, I think, maybe May, it was 20 leads per week.
Mm.
So it changed,
Yeah.
right? So uh, that turned out. So what happened to me at that point is I was buying real estate and I was doing pretty good, and I was kind of living off the real estate, and then all of a sudden I got bombarded with coaching students. That summer I had maxed out my coaching group, and we were just because people were told to stay home, right?
And they needed
Uh,
help. They needed
and
help.
they
Like, what do we do?
well, they wanted to make money, but more importantly, they had time to study.
Yeah, I guess
So they
they were
they were
home.
they were watching all our videos and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, the leads turned into getting off-market leads because what happened was is for sale by owners didn't want people in their houses because if somebody came in 2000 March, April, May, June of 2020, if you let somebody in your house, you would die, right? You could get COVID and die.
Hmm.
So nobody went in anybody's house, right? So that turned into later that year getting off market, out of area owner leads, right?
Yep.
Which means, the way we were doing it at that time was we would go to the town hall, get a tax roll or a tax list, right?
Or
And we
tax,
would
house tax on the house.
property
Yeah.
taxes, right?
Yeah.
And we would separate the property tax roll by where the tax bill was being mailed.
Hmm.
If it was being mailed to a different address than the property, then we would use it for marketing.
Hmm.
At that time, we were still doing yellow letters. That's how we did it. And we did signs.
Hmm.
And a vast majority of our properties that we got were off of the mailings from yellow letters and signs. And now we were transitioning into texting because the yellow letter responses had thwarted because so many people were doing it and it didn't look unique anymore.
Hmm.
Right.
They're getting a lot of mail, different kinds, postcards, letters, all kinds of
Not
stuff.
well, not only that, but there were a lot of people sending them. Well, there were more people sending the letters, and it became automated, so they were computerizing them instead of handwriting them, and
Hmm.
it really devalued the whole marketing campaign,
Yep.
right? And then the other interesting point is at this point, this is when Zoom came on board. Now, Zoom was a big company or was a company, but they went public, right? And all of a sudden, the potential of somebody like you and I, an older person, getting on a Zoom was detrimental because otherwise you had no communication to the outside world,
Hmm.
right? Of any kind, unless your family and stuff, you could do like FaceTime and stuff with your phone.
Hmm.
But Zoom was the thing, and it Zoom blew up overnight. I mean, the
Yeah.
pandemic made that company,
Yeah. If you
right?
want to do any kind of business, a lot of people were home and still trying to work. So I wound up working my other job on my computer, just like this.
Yeah,
For months, I would have probably starved and died. So a
yeah.
lot of people, and Zoom was like the biggest platform.
So we did that. We did that for a while. We did online presentations and became highly sought after because we were using text magic. Now this is before, and I think. I mean, I'm not saying this because I think we're special anybody, but we were doing this before it became popular,
Hmm.
right? And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden, texting got popular, and everybody started doing it until mid 2021 when the market completely saturated itself with too many folks stuck at home trying to make money and plenty of time on their hands to do real estate training, right?
Hmm.
And it just saturated the market, right? So by the end of 2021, sellers were pissed off because they were actually getting multiple texts per day from multiple investors giving drive-by offers. Now, I want to clarify what I mean there. I don't mean that you were physically driving by the house.
Mm-hmm.
To be completely political for a moment, I think that the mass news media give drive-by news reports.
Hmm.
I mean, you ever notice that when you watch the news, the local news, it's like the reporter standing 500 feet away from the fire truck,
Yeah.
right? They're standing a half a mile away from the car wreck,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're standing on the other side of the crime tape.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I mean by a drive-by reporting is it's just a generality. It's what they think. There's no data there. There's no
Oh.
details. There's no, it's like, oh yeah, I went to McDonald's. That's a great No, I like McDonald's. That was a great restaurant. And you drive by it, but you never been in it.
Mm-hmm.
You never went in to order and experience what it's like to be in a McDonald's. You don't know what it's like inside of one. And I think that personally, I mean, you can berate me if you want later, and you can troll me or whatever you want to do. But I think that's what's killed America is we have drive-by reporting,
Mm-hmm.
right? No details, just a generality, like throw it out there, a big wide net, and like make an alarming report to get people to watch you because your only job is to get eyes on you so that you can have advertisements because that's where you make money. That's what
Sure.
the news does. The news is a TV. TV is all about entertaining you so they can present to you ads, right? Even if they don't present to you ads nowadays, it's subscriptions. So you have to pay a subscription so you don't have to watch the ads. But instead, you're paying them anyways. You either pay for the ads
Mm-hmm.
or you pay subscriptions.
Yep.
So I'm on a little bit of a rant here, but let's just say like my newsletter or my email list, not my newsletter because the newsletter's free. My email list. We count how like not everybody makes a purchase on my email because on my email I'll offer people certain things they can't get anywhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we do monthly, or used to because I don't do it anymore, we used to take the monthly income and divide it by the names on the email list.
Right.
So we look like each person on the email list is worth $1.92.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you're paying a subscription for $6 or $7 or $9, that's because they figured out how much they were making for their advertising budget and they divided it by everybody, just like I did with the email list, and that's how they come up with the subscription.
Mm.
So they're getting the same amount of money.
Ah. So instead
Right.
of the advertising, they cover it with the subscription.
With a
Okay.
membership, yeah.
Yeah. I have some of those that have damn ads on it as well. Damn it.
Yep. Yep.
Come on, that ain't fair. I thought I paid for this. No ads.
So why am I talking about this? Because this is what
Mm.
it was like in mid 2020 is we had investors that were not really investors. They were wannabes or newbies
Mm.
blasting these offers out saying, hey, I could pay you this much. And then the problem was because I know this because we were on the phones. I was on the phones. I was on the phones more back then than I am now. And the handling would be, when I was training my coaching clients, well, I get 5 offers a day. And the answer was, go ahead, Peter, you say it. You
Um,
remember? Oh, you remember?
well, I remember you say, hell, did they give you a contract?
Yeah. Did they give it to you in writing?
Yeah.
Right. And most of the time what happened was these drive-by offers where they were just kind of like the newspaper kid sitting in the car flinging the newspaper out the window on the front steps. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Toon, just shooting offers out. Right. But when it came down to getting the details, most people did not respond. So the seller thought, quote unquote, thought they had an offer,
Mm.
but it was just a drive-by.
Yep. And when they did get offers, they didn't follow through. They disappeared
Right.
because they found that they couldn't do it. So they just left. Throw a big number out, promise things, and like, oops, and then leave. Stupid.
Right. Right. So by the end of 2021, sellers were kind of pissed off because they were actually getting multiple texts per day from multiple investors with these drive-by offers, right?
Yep.
While this was going on, right? By early 2022, the market inflated to a point that end users, right, which are people that live in the house, were offering 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand over market value,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
Now, let's stop there for a second because we're in Connecticut, so I thought it was just Connecticut because New York, who is more liberal than Connecticut, and I say that because in Connecticut the landlord has no rights. I mean, I just sold a property, a two-family property, because a tenant went on his own. Not even the tenant's boyfriend, who's not even on the lease and wasn't even supposed to be living in the house, went into a walk-up attic and lit a furnace, a pilot on a furnace, and the furnace blew up. It cost me $14,000 to replace the furnace between the furnace and the loss in rent, right? And now the boyfriend is suing me, saying that I didn't maintain the furnace and it was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And Connecticut, and he got that idea because the housing authority representative told him to do that.
Oh, great.
Right. So that's why I say it's liberal, because it's not a landlord market, because the housing guy was berating me. He actually sent me violations, which I never paid, saying there was no heat in the house. And I told him, well, they should move. I can't put heat in the house the same day. They blew my furnace up. There was no mercy for me at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I now had to give tens of thousands of dollars to an attorney to go represent me in court because of a frivolous drive-by lawsuit, because they're looking to get a cash grab, thinking they're going to get $30,000 or $50,000 from the insurance company. And the insurance company tells me I'm not covered because the insurance company doesn't cover insinuations. And I'm like, well, every lawsuit is an insinuation. So it's a whole thing. I ended up just hiring an attorney, and that's how I deal with stuff like that. Fortunately, I had sold the house and I had some money, so I was able to do that because it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the point that I'm trying to make is that New York is worse than that because they have rent control. They even tell you how much you can charge per month. So what was happening in this 2021 2022 era is they were selling these properties for huge money, 2-3 times what they were worth, right? And they had a chunk of dough, and they were coming into Connecticut. So, like if there was a property that was selling for 400,000, they come and offer them 800,000, 800,000, and write a check for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the whole thing just inflated. Now all of a sudden, you and I are coming along and say, "Well, let's do a terms deal. We'll give you monthly payments," and it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It
The
didn't
big
matter.
fat wad of cash right now is more appealing than money here, there, and the other way. And even if it was more, they just were impatient. A lot of people still are. They don't really look at the big picture of the future. They don't care. They're like very short term mentality.
I just read an article between Massachusetts and Connecticut and New York. During that time period, it was between 34 and 38% appreciation.
Mm,
That's ridiculous. It used to be 3%. We use 3% in our deals. I
yeah.
also read that today's appreciation averages 4.3%, not 3%, or 4.5% or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. But we use 3% in our options to satisfy our sellers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is all happening, right? Inflation to me means too much money, not enough products. Right.
Right.
So you have one house and 20 buyers, the price is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what was happening, right? Because there was no properties on the market. The realtors were spouting that it was because in the 50s we didn't build enough houses and the population keeps growing, and they had all these, Peter Pan and Snow White stories, you know what I mean, that were just kind of made up from Disney and just kind of entertaining, and that was all they were, right? The truth of the matter is when you tell the United States population to stay home, they're not going to produce the spring for the airplane or the couch for your living room or package the food that you're going to eat
Mm-hmm.
from their living room. So production went way down. And then they printed $10 trillion and filtered it into the market, giving people $600 a week. They gave them, gave families $1,200, $1,500 for having COVID, and the government just flooded the market with money. And that is the reason why we have inflation. We still have it. And the current administration is, agree with it or not, is working on getting production back into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other thing that happened is a lot of the production went outside of our boundaries.
Right.
They went to New Mexico and China and all those places. So between the pandemic and lack of production and or companies moving out of the country, we became a financial institute. All we were doing was passing around the same money. The same $100 was being passed around, so you could get interest, and he can get interest, and I can get interest, and they can get interest. And by the time you get done, that $100 was worth $1 million because everybody's getting interest off of it. We became a financial institution with no production.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. And without production, people have trouble buying houses. Right. That was the other problem is that people went without a job, so purchasing houses and mortgage companies were struggling because of they had to alter the way they were looking at financials and going back before the pandemic. So this is 2001 and 2022. It was a hot mess. And here we are calling up the seller and saying, hey, can you take a 20% discount? As you can see, this was not cool, right? We were not doing deals.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Also, what happened is, I don't know if you know this or not, Peter, but AI has been around since 1954. Artificial intelligence was brought onto this planet or started talking about it in 1954.
I didn't realize it was that far back.
Google was started as a company to infiltrate or gather human intelligence. Google was started as an artificial intelligence company. The search engine was the tool to use for the data. So Google started to gather artificial intelligence. Now, I proved this to you. I'll fact check it for you. We're way off topic here, but I think we're okay.
Hope you're having fun.
Are you interested? If not, I'll just stop talking about it.
It's actually very interesting because it's like a history lesson the last few years summarizing all that. Sorry, because we all lived through it, but you looking back at it and just put it in perspective. It's really very interesting because I lived through that. Right. I sold a family home. We had some of our properties. We were looking at each other. Do we hang on to these properties or we sell? We were in a huge seller's market, so we sold some and made big money.
Right.
Then it was hard to get more, so we're pulling it back now, pulling the properties back in.
Right. So Google, I'll prove it to you. I lost my train of thought.
Well, you're showing how Google was accumulating all the data because AI needs data to accumulate to.
If you read Google's history, and there's books on this, which I've read some of them, not many. Why did they go so long without income? Why did they pour tens of millions of dollars from angel investors and put it in there? What was their pitch to the angel investor? It wasn't a search engine, right? That wasn't the case. I mean, there were other search engines. There was Yahoo and there was Microsoft, whatever that was called, right?
Yeah.
The thing that attracted people to Google is that Google's search engine page had nothing on it. There was no ads on it. Right? So sooner or later down the road, Google stole from Yahoo. They stole it from Yahoo, the pay-per-click idea. Oh. And there was actually a lawsuit. Google was sued for it. But by that time, they were making so much money, they just bought their way through it. It's like Zuckerberg, right, going to Harvard and stealing the idea of Facebook from his friends. He got sued for it years later, and he had so much money at that point, he just paid everybody off, and they shut up, and nobody talks about it.
Yep. Water under the bridge, but he did. It's in the movie. There's a movie out, and you can see it.
But the interesting thing, which is the reason why I picked to bring this up, is at this point, November of 2022, ChatGPT hits the market.
Mm.
Now, what happened is it's not AI was not the issue. It was the interface and how to use AI was what the revolutionary factor was there, right? In other words, they didn't know how to use the artificial intelligence.
Mm.
And then ChatGPT is considered an open source, meaning that it's not a company, it's just something you can get for free, which you can still get. It's kind of like the Google model.
Yep.
Now, here's the interesting thing. It took, I think, Google, it took them 10 years or something, or 11 years to get 50 million users. When ChatGPT hit the stage, I think it was like, I don't know if it was 2 weeks or 2 months. It was a very short period of time. They got 100 million users,
Wow.
right? So this hits the market now, right? And if you don't know anything about artificial intelligence, it takes any human being and elevates their IQ. I mean, ChatGPT, I think right now is running somewhere around 145 IQ. The interesting thing is ChatGPT has different models like 4.5, 4.0, 3.0, 1.1. They have different models.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference between each model is how much they've dumbed it down because it actually has an IQ of like 200 or 300, but they have to dumb it down so we can use it. So the different
I had no idea it had an IQ rating. You know, like
yeah,
I didn't know they could do that. Like how intelligent, how good it works.
yeah.
That's
So
nuts.
they kind of dumb it down so that they can so that they can use it, right? There are models right now that are being sold to corporations that have like 200 IQ that replace employees, and they're paying $20,000-$30,000 a month for AI to run their companies,
Wow.
right? And we just don't know about it. Google has the best AI. Google also, and the reason why is because the trick with AI, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's when AI learns from itself.
Oh.
That's what humans do. We learn from ourselves. So that's the going rate. And the stupid thing is AI right now, this is just like what I talk about with the internet, but AI right now is the stupidest you'll ever see it. I mean, I talk about this with cars. Like in 1920, what were the cars like?
Sure.
Right? And now 100 years later, look at them, right? Well, that's what we're like with the internet right now and AI, right? All right, so I got diverted there. The point is all this is happening, and that hit the market 2020, so it started changing shit. Right now, all of a sudden, coaching and teaching real estate and all that whole business, the whole Ron LeGrand model with the seminars, and
Yep.
and having
Drive to New Jersey, fly to Texas, go out to Chicago.
all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden that changes. Everything changes now. Now everybody could be a real estate investor, right? Also, we were making offers that were falling on deaf ears. Like I said before, I mean, who wants to have a 10 to 30% discount, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the real estate interesting was just appreciating that much. Now we get into 2023 ish, and and uh, we're seriously struggling with closing deals. We had gone a couple of years where it was really dry, not buying any deals. Kind of really, I know you and I were struggling, and others were too,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's when uh, I recognized that we needed more outflow.
Mm-hmm.
I used to say if you could talk to 15 sellers, you had a chance of buying a house.
Right.
Now I think it's 150. Right?
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm being facetious. It's at least it's a lot more than 15. So that's when I realized that the outflow was bad. At this point, I partner up with Sean on an LLC, and we start buying some houses. We start using REI Reply, which is our sister company, and we built a creative real estate system. Sean did. He took my knowledge, and I said, I want this, I want that, I want that. And then he, because I'm 61 and he's 30 now, and it wasn't that way then. He was only in his mid 20s.
Mhm.
And we started doing this, right? To find out that Sean calls me up. He's like, dude, I think we're in trouble. I'm like, what do you mean? He says, I'm getting like wicked messages from the owner from REA Replay. He wants to talk to us. To get onto a phone call, my first phone call, David Espelot, who owns, and Susan Ishman, who own REA Replay, were like, we want to partner with you. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I don't even know him. I don't
Mhm.
even know he's the real owner of REA Replay.
Oh,
And they're like,
really?
what are you guys doing in our system? So after a month or two, a couple months, I finally come around to, well, if we get an LLC and we get an operating agreement and everybody's equal partners, then I'll consider it. So we start building Creative REI Replay, right? And the purpose of Creative REI Replay was to do the outflow because
Mhm.
we needed massive outflow, right? So we start using the software and it's like not really doing anything, right? It's like we're getting massive outflow, we're getting things done, and it's much different now than it is then because we have way more stuff. I mean, this week, meaning today, because it's Thursday, this week, we are going to release our new automated robot inside of REI Replay. Right now, we put leads in the account for you for your monthly fee. We put leads, skip trace, motivated leads in your account. We have an AI that answers all the texts for you and makes appointments. Then we change that to, well, let's not do that. Now we put the leads into your account. We send them a text and say, we spent some time putting an offer together for you. Do you want to see it? And the robot actually makes the offer. You don't even make the offer anymore.
Mhm.
And then we make an appointment. And then once they say yes, we make an appointment. Well, after today, it's not going to be that way. It's going to be we put the leads in the account, we send them a text and say, hey, we spent some time putting an offer together. Can I call you? And the robot will call them and give them the offer. And the
Mhm.
robot sounds like a human being. And we're not trying to act like a human being. We're saying the robot says I'm an agent, right? So they know it's robotic, but the robot will call and it sounds just like you're talking to a human. And the robot will call and actually give the offer. And if they're interested, they'll make an appointment. So that's how far our Creative REI Replay has come, right? And that's part of the Frankenstein model that I'm talking about because it was all the pieces and the parts. Right now, I'm talking about the Grand Slam offer, right? So now, we're at the point now where we're, late 2023, early 2024, and we're outflowing. So I solved the outflowing problem. Like we got to outflow. We got to get out there. We got to let people know who we
Mhm.
are, and we're still not making deals. I mean, we're making more deals, but we're not making enough deals.
Yeah.
And that's,
Well, it's about 100 leads for us. It's 100 leads a day.
yeah,
And for a while, because I'm like in the front on the phones, people wouldn't even want to talk to me. Then they
right,
started talking to me. Then they started doing like, oh, that sounds good. Send me the paperwork, and then not following up. But it keeps getting
right,
closer and closer and closer. So it's like a lot of leads, a lot of paperwork going out, and then some saying actually yes and signing. But I can see the progression as you're working through all this stuff. So,
right,
it keeps really getting closer and closer with good volume too. I can't keep up with it right now.
right.
So thanks for the AI because it's so many
Yeah,
leads. I cannot. I go back. Oh crap! This guy wanted to talk to me 2 weeks ago. Jesus, I
right.
missed that one. There's so many. I'm not making it up.
So now we're into we're in end of 2023, beginning of 2024, and too many are telling us that they just want all cash because, like any other market, the problem with real estate is the end user or the person selling or buying the house are the last person to be informed.
When prices go up and down, the public is at the end of the
Right.
chain of events, and they don't see the changes for a while.
So it's 6 months to a year, right? So the point that I'm trying to make, I just realized we're 45 minutes in and I'm only halfway through my podcast, so I have to move on. I'm telling too many stories. So what happened was at this point, that's why I said last podcast, one of the things that I realized is that sometimes you have to just do something to fully understand it. And that comes from sellers need to put their house on the market before they fully understand you.
Yeah.
So what happened now is mid 2023 and 2024, we were knocking it out of the park with expired listings because people would put their house on the market for the inflated price, thinking they were still in the COVID era, right, of 2021, 2022, but that
Mhm.
era had dampened. And
Yeah.
they're trying to list their prices for over market value. Now, back then, over market value, what would happen is the appraisers would push the appraisal, and then people would throw in extra 10, 20, $30,000 to make up the difference between what the bank wouldn't give them and the sales price.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So at this point, I realized that they want all cash deals. So prior to this point, I was teaching that you need to have a 10 or 15% discount to use an option agreement to sell a property,
Hmm.
right? So I turned that into just using an option, much like a realtor would, right?
Yep.
Uh, so people wanted all the dough in the deal; they just wanted all their money. So what we would do is say, well, we'll sign an option agreement with you for 90 days, and we'll go find your buyer. And it's often going to happen within 30 days. Right? And
Hmm.
part of this realization came from the NAR lawsuit in 2023. It was November 2023. National Association of Realtors got sued, mostly for racketeering, which they got out of it. They hushed it really good. They actually settled on the lawsuit mid 2024. So they got sued in October of 2023, and then it was June or July when they settled. They were sued and lost for $1.78 billion, and they settled, I think, for like $483 million. And the
Hmm.
reason why is because they were considering the 75-year-old system that you have a customer, you're under contract with the customer, which is the seller,
Hmm.
and you're obligated. It was a fiduciary problem. In other words, you were obligated monetarily to that seller,
Sure.
but then splitting your commitment to the buyer's realtor, and
The,
that
the,
was,
the commission
yeah,
or commitment? Yeah, commission. Yeah.
yeah. So you were splitting your commitment, your monetary commitment, your fiduciary commitment with the buyer, and
Mm.
that was proven to be against the law. So now in 2024, when they have this lawsuit, it now separates seller and buyer in a transaction. So the seller now has the right to say, I'm not paying the buyer's commissions.
Hmm.
So I only, because they would split a commission, they would get 5%, 2.5% would go to the seller, 2.5% would go to the buyer, right? Well, now the seller has the right to say, well, I'm not paying the 2.5% to the buyer. I'm only paying you 2.5% to sell the house, which means now the buyer has to include that 2.5% in their deal. And the banks aren't financing that as far as I know. They might be now, but I don't think they are.
Mm.
So it would make a difference on the offers. So now with this separation, it really helps us, but I don't realize that right away, right? So by the end of 2024, Creative REI Reply is sailing along. Users are getting in, following my methods, and making deals within 30 days. Because right now, what we do is our offers are the slot deal, which is a sandwich lease option transfer, where we offer to find the seller a lease option person that doesn't qualify for a bank mortgage, and we get the buyer to pay our profit. So if the house is worth 200,000, we promise the seller $200,000, and we inflate the price by 5 or 10%, and that money. So let's say we sell the house for 210. That money is used for down payment money, the $10,000. We keep that as profit. The seller knows it. The buyer knows it. It's all transparent. And then we write the contracts and we put buyer and seller together, and they go off for 3 years. By doing that, I realized the amount of money that a seller could make, because they could get cash flow, they could get principal reduction on their mortgages, they can get
There's a
depreciation and
Yeah,
appreciation,
and they
and that
save in the closing costs that they save.
and the closing costs. So
Mm.
it adds up to about 35% over market value. So we start giving these grand slam offers and telling people, no, no, no. If you sell for all cash, it's gonna cost you between 10 and 15%. Most often it's 12 or 13%
Hmm.
as closing cost.
Yep.
Even Zillow lists that now,
Hmm.
right? So what happens is now we present the grand slam offer. You want to make 35%, and if they say no, then we say, well, we'll sell it for cash, because I realized that the system that we were using, which is the options, which is the right to buy, but not the obligation to buy,
Mm-hmm.
works very similar to a realtor contract, because a realtor gets a house under a listing agreement for free. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to know anything, and they advertise it to their buyers, because the buyer is the one that's giving them their money, right? The
That's
buyer's
right.
funding the deal.
That's right.
So the only way to find buyers is to actually have inventory to show them, right? You have to have honey to get bees to come, right?
That's
So
right.
so you get the inventory for free, more or less, right? Because you're gonna tell the buyer, you got to give them legal consideration, which is anywhere from it's just paper money. So I say anywhere from $1 to $100, and most people don't care about how much you're giving them anyways. So you can give them $1, and now you're in the same game as a realtor, except you don't need to have a license, because you have a principal share and an equity share in the property, and you now can sell on the property as an owner. So you don't need to have a license,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all this unravels in my mind throughout this period. So we're taking little pieces and parts from the deal structures, and we're putting together the Frankenstein model out of just sure survival. Right? Is this making sense?
No, believe me, I lived through it. And like, how come this isn't working? Well, we have to do that. They don't want to do terms. Well, we'll just, what do they ask for? Cash. Well, we'll do cash because we can. It didn't seem, well, one of the things is if the houses are $300,000, 5% is a good piece of money now. If it's
Right.
100,000, 120,000, it's not a big deal. But at that rate, it's a decent income to be doing a deal like this. Doesn't seem
Right.
like a big percentage, but a small percentage of a big deal is fine.
So all this is kind of revolving around, and I'm just kind of like handling it as it's thrown to me. I'm just catching the pitches, and I'm just kind of like trying to survive, and let's do this and let's do that. And I'm trying not to be too erratic and knee jerk type decisions, because that's not me. I like to test things and check things out. And now at this point, I'm coaching my own coaching group. I'm coaching for Creative REI Reply, and I'm coaching for a friend of mine. So I have a vast variety of people that I talk to face on Zoom every week. So I'm
But
getting a lot of
in
feedback.
the entire country, pretty much all over
Yeah.
the place, not just our backyard where we're tainted by it's us here, but you could see the whole country, different states, all over the place to see what's really going on.
So now, just the way just the way my head works, right? Now it's early 2025, and I keep trying to hang on to all of this experience. So right now it's 5 years worth of us doing trial and error, and I have these salient points that are working. Right? Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? So I'm trying to
Yeah.
hang on to them, but they're not really in order, and they're like random.
Hmm.
So I'm talking to you, and you're bitching at me, rightfully so, that we talk about things on a podcast and we talk about things over here, and it's like, what do I use where and when, and it seems confusing, and I forgot to do that. You're on the phone. I'm like, well, did you do this? Well, I forgot to do that because it's not laid out in a system. So this is irritating the living crap out of me, right? Like, I have all this data, and it's like I'm frustrated because I can't seem to get understood. Like this, no, it's just this simple. It's like really simple.
Mm-hmm.
But that was only in my head, right? So I remember driving home from the church one night, and I don't know what happened that day or that week. I don't remember that, but I just know that my head was like whirling, and I can't explain it. It was almost like an out of body experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? Almost. And I'm smoking a cigar and I'm driving home, and I'm like, God damn. I got all these datas running through my head, and I'm like looking at them, but they're all out of order. They're all mixed up. Anyways, long story short, I'm like, to hell with this. I drive home. It's like 9:30 at night, and I sit in my driveway, and I got a big old cigar, and I'm like, I'm gonna go onto my cell phone because I have the ability to pull up a Google Doc, and I have my headphones in. I'm going to just kind of like turn the music down, and I'm just going to vomit on a Google Doc because I have text to speech or speech to text. And I'm just going to vomit on this document. And I'm going to lay it out as if I'm going to write a book, never intending to write a book. I'm just going to lay out the chapters or the sequence. It was mostly the sequence so I can show it to Peter. And this is what I did, right? And I think I spent an hour and a half that night. I then got up the next morning and I'm like, holy shit. And I kind of spent the day manipulating that index or that table of contents, which it is now.
Mm-hmm.
And I started two-dimensionally drawing pictures and like demonstrating it, because a lot of times you have something in your head and it's abstract.
Yeah.
You have to put it in the physical universe and kind of move it around so you can see it to make sure, a good idea of this is like when your wife wants to move furniture in the living room. She has an idea what she wants, but she doesn't realize the couch doesn't fit on that wall, right?
Yep.
So you got to kind of move the furniture around to see where it all fits, right?
Or make cutouts on a piece of paper because it's not as heavy.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I kind of lay this book out, and it's an accumulation of all these Frankenstein. I got an arm here, I got a leg there, I got a piece of an organ here, and I got a toe there, and I got a ear over here and a nose there, and I have all these pieces that I'm trying to put together to make my monster.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, and I until that night when I sat in my driveway, I don't know how long. I think it was an hour and a half, 2 hours. I went to bed that night and I tossed and turned and dreamt about it like all night long. I got up early that morning and hit my computer. I'm like, I couldn't. It was an obsession. I couldn't stop. I couldn't shut my mind off. Right. So the next day I got up and I worked on it all day. And it turned out to be my brand new book, right? Which is what we've been promoting. It actually laid out. I had no idea all the datums I had would be such a beautiful system. Of which, and I'm not saying because I wrote it, it's because a lot of people are telling me that, of which a system of 6 stages, where you start off with testing before you invest. And as you test your buyers and where the money's coming from, and which by the way, a realtor does this too. A realtor doesn't go into a house and say, oh, I'm going to do an inspection. The buyer goes in and does the inspection. The buyer goes in. So the realtor is permitting the buyer to go in and do the inspection and come back. So now the buyer makes the offer and they do the inspection. So the realtor doesn't do anything. So I'm thinking, well, no disrespect to realtors, but they don't have to go to school to learn how to be dealologists like we are in create real estate. Why are we doing that?
Mm.
Right? Mm-hmm. Now, yes, there are some deals that if you are a dealologist are fat gargantuan deals. But why do you start that way? So I laid out the book in the 6 stages where you start with the easiest, no risk deal. You get used to it, and then you move on to the next stage and the next stage. And as you go through and do deals, you make money, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, and you start saving that money. So by the time you get into the subject to deals and owner finance deals, you got a chunk of dough.
Yep.
And you've tested that area and made sure that there's buyers that will pay you, so you don't get stuck with a property.
Mm-hmm.
And the book actually turned out to be a blueprint, which I had no idea I was making it when I made it. I was just looking to get my Frankenstein parts on the table so I could start stitching things together and make a monster, make a body. Right? And that's all I was trying to do when I kind of went blah that night.
Yeah, but you put it in sequence.
Well, I did that the next day when I started two-dimensionally, like laying it out. Well, wait a minute. No, this becomes, because what it is a gradient scale so that you can learn. It's made so you can learn while you earn, or earn while you learn, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like you're not obligated to a deal. You could go test a deal. I mean, we do this in marketing, right? We come up with an ad and we go test it. We spend, $5, $10 per ad. And then we spend 100 and 200, and then we spend 500, then we spend 1,000 until we get the right ad, and we pour tens of thousands of dollars onto it, right? It's the same way when you're dating. When you date someone else in the opposite sex or same sex or whatever, when you're dating, you're testing the other person out to see if they kind of like comply with you, right? Do they fit into your groove, right? We do the same thing with food, right? We test food before we actually say we love it. We take a little piece of it first, right?
Are you saying we go to Costco and hit up all the little vendors for a
Yeah,
little cup off?
whatever. Yeah, however it works. All my point is testing before investing is a new model. It's just never been introduced into the real estate business because it's taught that you need to have money and you need to go get a bank loan and you need to do all these things before you could test it. So it's backwards. You have to invest before you test.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't need to be that way. So this is a simple concept, but it's never been brought to the industry before. It's never been put together. This is why it's a Frankenstein monster, because it's going to ruin or affect the real estate industry once it gets out there and spread around, because it's just common sense, right? So the monster is for the realtor who's getting paid all those fees to find a buyer. They're not paid to consult I mean, some of them do that. The ones that want to get paid, they realize if they don't consult the seller and the buyer, they won't get to a closing,
Mm-hmm.
right? But really, when you go through realtor school, which I have done, they only teach you how to hang on to the deposits and write the purchase and sale contract, and it goes over to the closing agents, right?
Yep.
So the most important thing that I laid out, other than all these datums that we figured out. Now, this is 30 plus years, hundreds of transactions, coaching, decades of coaching, all this stuff. And then the pandemic, like having to come through all that. So it's like a perfect storm of how this accumulated, right? And I'm just trying to figure it out for my own sanity. So the most important thing that came out of the book was the 6 stages of creative real estate, right? Which I would have never guessed 5 years ago. I would have ever dreamed up anything like that. But it took me over. I'm telling you, I was sitting in my driveway and I was driving home and I just saw in the windshield these pictures of these deals. You and I talking and, oh, there's this deal and then there's that. And there, oh yeah, don't forget about this, the way we say this and this script and that calculator and like, creative REI reply and like all this stuff, right? It's just flashing around in my head, right? So honestly, I've done all of this work to help you, Pete. You know that. I help you first, right? And others in Creative REI Replay. I mean, Creative REI Replay is not cheap. Well, it's not cheap for someone that's a dilettante, somebody that's just coming in to just kind of like, a dilettante is somebody that has information, but they're the drive-bys. They have the general information. They're not the detailed. But if you're really serious about making money in real estate, go ahead.
They're looking for a lottery ticket.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're really serious about making creative real estate a business, creative REI Replay is a business in a box, right? So for the amount of money that we charge for it, it's considerably cheap because every Thursday night I go on a support call, Sean and I, and at least 3 out of the 4 nights. I mean, last week I was on a call and I had a guy in there that's new. I hadn't met him before. And he's been using the system and he's been around for a couple of years. He's seasoned. And he tells me he's doing 4 deals a month off of our system. He bought a 38 unit apartment building, owner finance with no money down. And he just closed last Thursday when I talked to him. He had just closed on a car wash that he didn't want, but the seller was so motivated, they made it so easy because his philosophy is the same as mine. Because if you're from the old school, you knew that. It doesn't matter how much the price is as long as you can let me pick the terms. In both these situations, he picked the terms and so he owns a car wash and he's making like money every single day because he found somebody that had a car wash off of the system, by the way type thing, because the outflow is so much and it's so pinpointed and so focused and the leads are so good that if you just get on the phones and you got a little bit of knowledge, it's just incredible what you find. And nowadays with us giving offers and we're going to have the AI calling you and we have AI answer. I mean, By the time you get to the lead, if they've jumped through all those marketing hoops, by the time they get to you, you gotta close them, right? And that's what this guy is doing, right? So,
Right.
and there's too many times I get on a Thursday night call, and I'm not pitching creative REI replaying. I'm pitching the fact that this system that I accidentally put together like a Frankenstein, and it wasn't intended for me to be in this position to talk about it. It wasn't intended for me to write a book and have a workbook and an online course to teach you how to do this. It was not the intention at all. The intention was to teach you and some of my creative REI replay students to do it easier.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the intention, but it's kind of grown up, and we've got this Frankenstein model that we've taken through the different eras that have worked and accumulated them into what works today. Because fundamentally, real estate is not changing. We've gone through COVID. It's not going back. We're not going back to $140,000 houses. They're going to stay at $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they go down to $350,000 or $300,000, but they're not going back to $140,000.
No.
I don't even think we're going back to 2 or 3% interest like we had for 15 years. I don't even know about that, right? All I know is that to go forward nowadays, if you're not using the tools that we're talking about, if you're not using software to do outflow, if you're not using software to figure your deals out for you, like a calculator, if you're not letting software do your paperwork for you, if you're not allowing AI to help you respond and communicate with your customers, you're pretty much screwed. It's just where we're at. It's not because I'm trying to sell you software or it's just, I don't care whose software you use. If you can find somebody to do everything we do, send me an email at flippinghousesforrookies@gmail.com, and I'll give you a month free with my software just to show you that we could do it better than them. But I don't know anybody else doing what we're doing right, up until now, right? So in the book, right, the book is kind of like the catalyst of the system, which I came out with after the software, because even my creative REI replay students aren't following. I mean, the system in creative REI replay is similar to that, but it's not as clear and as delineated as it is in the book, right? So it's worth reading the book if you like to read, if you want to do this. I'm not telling you have to go buy the book. I'm not trying to sell you a book. I'm just saying it's worth reading it because of these highlights. Like I talk, and these are datums that were floating around my head, like how to control property for $100 or less to make 5-figure paychecks within 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing now. It wasn't before. This is like Alan Roberts coming up in the 70s saying real estate, no money down, his book, right? In the 80s, whenever it was, right?
Robert Allen,
yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Carlton Sheets.
Yep.
Right? This is like one of those moments. This is one of those places in time where you can actually control a piece of property for $100 or less, make a 5-figure paycheck, $3, $5, $10, $20,000, right? Within 30 days, right? Another datum is creative real estate is not made to learn it. You don't have to go study like you used to. You don't have to go do the seminars. You don't have to go watch YouTube videos. You don't have to do any of that with this book. This blueprint does it for you. All you need to do is go through the blueprint, go through the Frankenstein model, right? Which is the 6 stages I talked about. And they show you how to do it. So as you go through the 6 stages, you'll actually do a deal and have no risk. And oops, all of a sudden I made $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 by accident. Just by testing it so you can understand how it works. It's like a massive demonstration of like, does this work? I'm not asking you to believe anything I'm telling you. I'm asking you to go read my book and prove it for yourself. I don't need to be secondhand information for you. The book is a couple bucks. It's less than a dinner. So go buy the book and test it out. Prove me wrong. I would like that. Right? How about this one? Test before you invest. We talked about that, right?
Yep.
Where else can you test without capital? The reason why I came up with this test before you invest is because in the stock market you do dry trading. They call it
Mm-hmm.
dry trading, which
Mm-hmm.
means you go on the stock market or whatever software you're going to use, and you pick your stocks and write them down in a notebook, and then wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So you're testing before you invest in the stock market. So this is the same way, except we're doing it in real estate with live deals. So you know what the seller's concerns are, you know what the buyer's concerns are, and by the time you do one or two or three deals by testing and investing, you'll know how to invest your money that you made while you were testing. So you keep your $3,000, your $5,000, your 10 grand, your 20 grand, whatever. You take some of it, go have fun, right? But you should keep that money because if you're testing for investing, that will accelerate your subject to deals. So you could put 10 grand down and make 800 or $1,000 a month positive cash flow and pick up $50,000 worth of equity in the back end. Because now you have the money. You don't have to go get a private lender, right?
That's right.
So there's no more learning, studying, creative real estate, right? This is the system that shows you how you can earn while you learn. Like I said, you just go through the steps and you test it. You test me. You check and make sure that I'm not. It costs you a book. I'm not telling you to join up for coaching for $30,000 and let me prove it to you. I'm telling you to go buy a book, a paperback book, and just go through it.
And by the way, your coaching is not 30,000. That's the other guys. And we know several people who did that and didn't buy houses with the other guy.
And
Got
came
in
to me, and
trouble.
I got them. And they came to me, and for a fraction of the cost, pennies of the dollar, I coached them through it. Right,
Yep.
right. So the most important part of the blueprint, I have two more points and then we're going to end off. So the most important part about this blueprint is it shows you how to take money out of real estate and not put money in. That's like Robert. What did you say? Robert Allen is
Robert Allen. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like that to me. That's a statement that Robert Allen made: buy real estate with no money down. To me, my statement that matches that is: how do you take money out of real estate and not put money into it?
Yeah.
That's my statement. And if you know how, it's like ridiculously easy. And this blueprint, this book shows you exactly how to do that, right?
Yep.
And the last thing is knowing the simple formulas that can get you to retire early in most time 3 to 5 years, right? And the formula, which I talk about all the time, is money now, money monthly, money later. But we implement that formula so that in 5 years from now, you could be fully retired and just living your own life if you follow the blueprint. And it doesn't have to be 5 years. I'm saying 5 years if you buy one or two deals a year.
Mm.
If you buy one or two deals a month, you could do it in a year or two.
Yep.
Right? And
Yep.
oh yeah, by the way, Peter, the last thing I want to say,
Mm-hmm.
this is the only blueprint I know of that old people can use.
That's funny.
I wrote a book and I made a workbook for the old people that don't want to use computers, that don't want to use cell phones. They can use the book and the workbook. Using the computer and getting into Creative REI Replay is not hard. It's not technical because we do everything for you.
Mm-hmm.
That just accelerates your thing. Because I have a lot of people that are 60, 70, 80 years old that want to do this because they realize they've had all their life and they didn't set up their retirement. Now they want to retire early, right? And that's important. So the whole blueprint covers all of that. So anyways, I hope I didn't sound like a big sales pitch today. I didn't want to do that. It's just what I consider the Frankenstein method. And it was forced upon you and I, nobody else, just you and I, because you and I are still here, right? Others have come and gone, but you and I are still here. And it just, for whatever reason, it struck me. The history just struck me as like, wow, I should tell that story. So I've done that today. It is not over. The story's not over because Creative REI Replay is the worst you'll ever see it today because it'll only get better from this point forward as technology changes because technology is changing faster than ever, especially with artificial intelligence, right? And I know roofing companies
Yeah.
that are giving offers over the telephone and never looking at the house. because they have drones and they have aerial pictures of a house and they have software that can measure the top of the house and tell you how many square feet it is and then give you an offer over the phone.
Yeah, well, with Google Maps, you go look at your house, satellite, click satellite, zoom in, and hey, look, there's my car. Hey, look, there's a car we bought last year.
Right.
Oh, look, we took the flowers out. You can see your own house. It's crazy, and they can do that from the satellite.
And things like that are just. I mean, we could keep going on and on. I mean, how about the guy with Untuck It, the shirts, Untuck It?
Yeah.
Yeah, you measure yourself and you put it online and they send you a shirt.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's so many places that AI has invaded that you don't even know it. My coach, Will, was working with American Express because they're looking to replace their support center with AI. American Express.
Wow.
And it's smarter than the support people.
No offense, but that might not be too hard.
Because all you have to do is upload all their documents, and then AI goes back and say, well, that's, paragraph, document, blah, 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 paragraph 2, and they read it to you. So it's perfect dictation on their policy. There's no interpretation. So
yeah, what person could remember all that and know all that, retain all that?
So I'm droning on, but my point is to hopefully have a wake-up call to let you know that there's two things that you should take away from this Frankenstein model.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, you can't do real estate without technology today. You cannot. It's too archaic. It's become archaic in 3 or 4 years. And number two, because of technology today, you could do real estate deals faster than ever. So you can't do it without it, but once you do use it, I mean, within 30 days, you can have, 3,000, 5,000. And I'm saying 3,000 or 5,000 because I'm still old fashioned. 5% of any house, $300,000 house is 15 grand. Of a $400,000 house is 20 grand. An $800,000 house is 40 grand. And it takes the same amount of effort and paperwork and everything to do a $800,000 house as it does a $200,000 house. So, like you said, because of inflation, the numbers are just bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, I've droned on enough. Thank you very much for listening. Make sure you like us. Make sure you save us wherever you're watching us or listening to us. Make sure you go to Amazon.com, type in William Hawthorne without an E, Hawthorn, and find the book Leads, Deals, Cash, Creative Real Estate Operators Manual. And pretty soon you'll find a workbook there that you can use to actually go along step by step and actually do what you read. So we could take it from a mental concept into an actual doing this. So you can do that. And make sure you leave us a review wherever you're watching us. And thank you for all of the support that you guys give me and listening. And I hope I'm worth listening to and hope I'm helping you do deals. All right. So over and out. We'll talk to you on podcast number 461. Have a good week. Flourish and prosper. Okay. Bye.